Hi everyone, it's Adele here. Hope you are well. We are going to be getting started in a few minutes. So go and grab yourself a nice cup of tea or some water and get nice and snuggly. It is almost 7 o'clock. So we're about 3 minutes from starting off, and I'm here in Melbourne and it's cold. So I've got a blanket wrapped around me. I'm all snuggled. I'm actually sitting on the couch, and I would not normally do a webinar from here. Normally I would be in my office, but it's just been so cold. The heater is on in here and I just wanted to be comfortable tonight. I've been a little bit under the weather this week, so I do sound a little bit stuffed up in the nose, but I feel fine now. So yes, don't worry about that. But I am just going to wait for everyone to start dropping in, and then we're going to be getting started. And I really wanted today to talk about some of my favorite high protein foods, and also have a chat with you guys about my favorite ways to cook tofu. So of course, there's always room for questions. So make sure that you pop your questions in the chat box so I can continue to answer them. So we're just going to wait for 1 more minute for everyone to jump on, but I hope that you've all had a really good week. Friday is one of my favorite wind down days. It is the start of the weekend for me, really. I sort of stop working at about lunchtime, depending on what I've got to do. And I've been pretty busy because I was sick earlier on in the week. I took a couple of days off, and then come Wednesday, Thursday, and today I've been working on my Dusk by Adele products. So I've been packing skincare and lipsticks and posting them all out. So it's been a busy couple of days trying to catch up. Monday, though, is my favorite day of the week. What's yours? I love Mondays. It's the start of a brand new week and very much great energy. So I love Mondays. I actually look forward to Mondays rolling around because I'm so relaxed after, spending Sunday pretty much offline, that come Monday, I'm just full of ideas and full of beans and ready to go. So it is on the hour, and I'm going to dive right in. So I wanted to share with you guys a couple of things that I eat pretty much every single day, just to make sure that I'm getting all of the protein that I need. And a lot of people ask, on a plant-based diet, the question is always, well, where do you get your protein from? And you may have seen the image floating around the internet of the gorilla. And the gorilla's standing, beside a really scrawny guy, or a caveman. And the gorilla's got in a caption like, oh, well, where do I get my protein from? I get it from plants. It's the biggest primate, our closest relative, and they eat plants. So there's definitely no lack of protein in plant-based food. It is purely just making sure that you're getting adequate amounts and that you're getting really good quality amounts as well. There is no point having a whole lot of crappy, fake meats as protein when there are so many other sources and ways that you can get it as well. So one of my favorite ways is, throughout the day, I'll snack on nuts and seeds. So these are a couple of the ones that I go for regularly. I just filmed a video actually of my pantry. So if you saw that on my Facebook page, you would see that this is one of the glass jars that I use. It's an old peanut butter jar, but I've got walnuts in there. So you can see them, and I buy them in bulk. I buy them from the source, and they're pretty cheap. I think, I couldn't even tell you how much they are, to be completely honest. Brazil nuts. I love Brazil nuts. Really, really good for your hair, skin, and nails as well. They're really, really high in selenium and silica. So very, very important for healthy skin, hair, and nails. I also love high protein nut and seed mixes. So you can buy these. I buy this again in bulk from the source, or you can just buy a whole bunch of your own and mix it up in a little jar, and you can carry that around in your car. I often leave one in my car, so you can even put it in a smaller container and leave it in your handbag, which is another really great thing to do. When I'm out and about, I find that I often get really hungry, and if my husband wants to stop and get something, often there's not anything there for me. So I always make sure that I carry around at least some nuts and seeds in my bag. But this is pepitas, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, which are pepitas but raw, I think, yeah, I always get them confused. Peanuts. And peanuts are actually very, very high in protein. Quite high in fat, good saturated fat, but still really high in protein. There's almonds in there and walnuts. You can even buy a whole lot of broken up nuts. So if you go to your like local organic supplier or your bulk food supplier, they often have, you know, seconds of nuts that they can't really sell. So you could buy a whole bunch of them in bulk and then mix it up and make your own trail mix. So there's no fruit in that. Not for any reason. I don't think that there's anything wrong with really good quality organic dried fruit. I wouldn't buy conventional because there's a lot of sulfurs and sulfites in them. But that is one of the trail mixes that I do enjoy daily. So there are three types of nuts. Again, though, there's almonds. And to be completely honest, I get sick of almonds because I find them in everything. So I try not to overdo it on the raw almonds because I feel they can be quite heavy. So yes, definitely it's going to be a personal thing. Hazelnuts are gorgeous and I love them as a very special dessert, or, you know, I make them into something, but I wouldn't eat hazelnuts on their own. Pecans or pecan, however you guys like to say. I sort of say pecans. Try and say it a little bit fancy, they're pecans, but I love them on porridge. I find that they're really beautiful on porridge with some maple syrup, some cinnamon, and some banana. So, and you just sort of swirl everything together, and it's really, really beautiful. And they're very light, I find, as well. They're not as heavy as some of the other nuts. So they're just three types of nuts that I would have. Really, really great for you. Really great for your skin, as I said, very high in saturated fat. So definitely something that you guys should be munching on. You don't need to go overboard. You know, you can just have a small handful and, you know, munch on it throughout the day. And I find it's often enough. It's very satisfying and it does keep me quite full. So if I'm, like I said, if I'm struggling or if I'm out and about, it's a really great way to go. Another favorite of mine is dried, you know, legumes and beans. So I haven't brought out my entire pantry here. As I said at the start, I'm sitting in my lounge room because it's warm in here. I've got ducted heating, but the lounge room just always seems to be the warmest room in the house. But I did film a video on my Facebook page, a live video that you guys can check out, and I actually show you inside my pantry. So you'll see I've got red and green lentils. I've got mung dal, which is tiny yellow split pea. I also have in there chickpeas, which I've bought out only because it was the first packet that first bottle that I grabbed. So I buy dried chickpeas, and then what I do is I actually soak them the night before I need them. So simply soaking them, you are really activating them, and I promise you, when you start to cook your own legumes, you'll never buy tinned chickpeas again. There is just something amazing about the way that fresh chickpeas actually taste. I'm just going to have a sip of my turmeric tea. I don't know if you can see it. I don't want to tip it too much, but it's bright yellow. Hang on, I'll do this so you guys can see it. It's bright yellow. So there is cinnamon, clove, ginger, turmeric, and I've just made it up with some almond milk and black peppercorns, and I've just made it with some almond milk. So very, very simple. I love it. It's probably the one thing that has stopped me from getting sick all winter, and then I actually didn't have any for about a week. I sort of went off it, and that was the week that I got sick, of course. So I'm definitely going to make sure that I have at least 2 cups of it a day. So yes, once you start cooking your own beans, you will never go back to bought. You can make so many things with chickpeas. Just a couple off the top of my head. There's, you know, obviously hummus, because who has never had it and who doesn't love it? I get sick of food very simply, very quickly, as you guys know. So I try and space out the amounts of times that I eat things so I don't end up hating them. That's one of my biggest fears. I don't want to ever hate food. So I am very conscious of not overdoing it on certain things. But you can make patties out of them. You can put them in soups. You can make stews. I've got a gorgeous recipe in the clubhouse. For the girls that are in the clubhouse, you'll see that there is the Spanish chickpea and kale and potato stew. Oh, it's so good. If you haven't made it, please make it. And for those that have joined us from one of my free Facebook groups, I invited you guys along tonight as well. Do check out the Clubhouse, and I'll pop the link when I post this later on, because you'll just love it. It's just the most gorgeous dish, so filling, very simple to make. It makes a truckload, so you can have, lunches for the next couple of days, and it's really cheap to eat as well. So one of the things that a lot of people ask me is, how do you get away with eating cheaply? How do you, get by with organic food and vegan food on a budget? And to be completely honest, I'm pretty shocking. I don't look at the cost of things I buy. And I'm very lucky that I can. I'm very lucky that I can. I work hard. I make sure though that having really good quality organic food is my number one priority for me and my family. So definitely it's a priority for me. And if it's not for you, that's okay. You don't need to have a huge budget to do it. As I said, there are ways that you can get around it, and buying bulk is another great way to get around it. If you're only, if you're one person in a studio apartment, or if you are just cooking for one, go and see if you can actually go into a co-op, or go split some bulk foods with friends or family. Say if you've got family members that love buying bulk, or who never have before either, go in with them and just go halves in everything. So the more you buy, the cheaper it actually is, and you're not paying for packaging. So like I said, you don't need to have fancy glass jars and whatever to put everything in. I just use old recycled jars, whatever I can find, like literally any sort of glass jar. I've got wine bottles there. I had a friend come and stay with me 2 weeks ago, and I'm not a really big drinker, but while she was here, she had a couple of glasses of wine, and I've got some wine bottles that I've actually sterilized, and I'm going to use them for rice because they're such small grains, so I can just pour it out. So yeah, you don't have to be fancy. You don't have to go out and buy a whole lot of Pyrex or whatever sort of Tupperware or whatever. Just use whatever you've got around the house. This is an old kombucha bottle from the health food store. So going back to the protein, I try and eat chickpeas a couple of times a week, and I love combining chickpeas with brown rice. So brown rice is another really good source of protein. This is medium grain. I like the medium grain the best. I find it's got the nicest texture. I find that the long grain can be maybe a little bit too on the chewy side, but this is quite good. It's not overpoweringly brown either, and it doesn't upset my stomach. I used to go through a lot of rice, and I just wasn't digesting it properly, so I literally would eat brown rice, and then I'd be on the toilet half an hour later. So that's one thing that I use. We've got some questions, so I'm going to come back to them in a few minutes, because there's some, but keep asking them, please keep asking the questions. I'll come back and answer them all at the end so I don't get too distracted. But food combining is one really great way to make sure that you are getting all of your protein needs and vitamin needs. And food combining, for example, combining 2 grains or legumes to get all the amino acids that you need, basically. So I've got some really great food combining tools in my Veggie Head Academy. So it's definitely something that you guys can look up. There's heaps of resources online as well. Just type in food combining and you'll see. And another great thing to have that I try and have at least once a day is a protein powder. I obviously get vegan protein powders. So this is made from Brazil nuts. So like I said earlier, you guys know I love my Brazil nuts. Not sponsored, of course. I just love this brand so much, and I love what they stand for. So this is a Food Matters superfood protein. So there is pea protein in it, organic Brazil nut protein powder, lucuma powder, which is a Peruvian root, organic mesquite powder, which is sort of a very light caramelly flavor, cinnamon, vanilla, and Himalayan sea salt, which I don't love, and I'm going to be talking to them about putting local salt in their product, but it's still a really great product. So enjoy that. That's a fun one. I do love that. So another thing that I love to do at least once a day, I try and make sure that I have some form of tofu or tempeh. I don't have a lot of it, and I think people have this really preconceived idea thanks to a lot of media years and years ago. They used to post those pictures where they'd say, you know, if you ate, you'd need to eat, 5 kilos of spinach to get the same amount of protein in a tiny bit of steak. Remember that ad that used to be on TV years ago? Like I'm talking 25 years ago. I was a kid. You know, so it was that ad where they were like scales. I blame the media for making people think that that's true. And look, everyone's body is different. You need to go and find out what your needs are. You might be pregnant, you might be lactating, you might be elderly, you might be young, you might be recovering from an injury, you might be a bodybuilder, whatever it is, you do need to go to a specialist or nutritionist and find out what your needs are. However, they're often not as much as what you think. And even just having small amounts throughout the day is going to keep you satisfied. It's going to keep you full. It's going to help your body recover, especially if you're exercising, and it's going to make sure that your body is healing itself and repairing. So you don't need to worry too much. But I love tofu, and I didn't always. I was a huge tofu hater for a very, very, very long time. And tofu was one of those things that would just make my stomach go bleh, boring, so boring. So one of the ways that I love to cook tofu is I buy a beautiful organic brand. It's called Ernest Bean. When I was on the sunny coast, I used to buy Mighty Bean. So they're two gorgeous brands that I really do love. And I simply press them. So I press the tofu down between two chopping boards, and then I weight it down with heavy pots, cast iron pots, pans, whatever I've got in the kitchen that's heavy. I've actually got a big amethyst that I pop on top, and it weighs it down. Think of it like this: water out, flavor in. And tofu is stored in water, so you need to make sure that you are pressing it before you cook it. And it is probably the number one mistake that most people make, and that's why they don't like tofu, because it's so boring and bland. But when you've pressed out all of that water, you allow it to be able to soak in any flavors that you're cooking it in. So I will often press it down and then fry it lightly in some sesame oil or some macadamia nut oil or some olive oil, really, really lightly. I'm not talking, shallow frying or anything like that. I mean, just a splidge of it in my pan and, on either side. And then I'll top it off with some tamari. So I'll simply pour tamari over the top and I will cook it up, and it sort of goes nice and crispy and brown. And then I'll have that on top of a bed of salad and sauteed vegetables and brown rice. And that is a complete meal on its own. I'll often top it off as well with some tahini and some sesame seeds, just for a little bit of extra calcium. And that in itself is a complete meal. And you feel full, you feel good, and you're not, rushing for the junk food every 5 minutes. I had that for breakfast this morning. I make a big batch of brown rice once a week. And that sort of lasts me a couple of days throughout the week. I don't have it every day, but when I do, it lasts me. And then I just saute up fresh. So I saute onion, capsicum, mushrooms. Then I put in a whole lot of fresh greens from my garden. So parsley, kale, and silver beet or Swiss chard, whatever is fresh. And I saute that up and then have it all together. So complete meal, so easy to do. Meal prep is everything. It's done. And then tempeh, I'd do the same. So I would slice it really, really thinly and pop it and fry it in a pan. So they're just two ways that I really like to enjoy soy products. And as long as they're fermented, as long as they're organic and non-GMO, and it does say it on the packet, it should say non-GMO or non-GM, genetically modified, is the way to go. So I'm going to answer this question because it's a really, really good one. And hi, Susan, hope you're well. She says, can you recommend a good supplement for vegans to use for B12 and zinc? Also, what is a good way to make sure I'm getting enough iron? So look, Susan, for you, firstly, about the iron, definitely seeing someone. And an old trick that my naturopath used to teach me was she just used to say, look at the skin under your eye. And if it's quite pink, you're doing okay. If it's getting on the whiter side, you do need to start upping your intake of protein or iron. So that were two things that she used to tell me. So I'm going to take you into my kitchen because I'm going to show you what I've got. So we're going to go walking. I'm going to show you my fridge. So I've got two products that I want to show you. The first that I do enjoy, and I don't have it all the time, I have it occasionally, is Floridix. So this is a liquid iron and mineral supplement. I find it really good if I'm exhausted, if I'm really tired and not feeling great. I sort of will have a little bit of it. And then the second product that I love is, if I can grab it from here, and this is a great one. I've been having this only sort of for the last, probably the last 6 months I've taken on and off. It's called Strath tablets. So they're vegan. They're really, really brilliant. They are made from a yeast that is grown on molasses, and they're fantastic. It's been around, oh God, this brand has been around for like 30 years. Susan, trust me, the Strath tablets will change your life. I needed something and I didn't know what to take. So I asked a friend of mine, I said, look, I'm feeling a little bit flat. I'm a bit tired. And this was, mind you, after we moved back to the sun, after we moved back from the Sunshine Coast. I just needed something, and that was what he recommended. And I haven't looked back. It's such a great product. So I'll just read out the information. So it's active ingredients. Each tablet contains 435 milligram of powdered cells of Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is baker's yeast, in a natural base of non-active ingredients: maize starch, microcrystalline cellulose, pectin, apple, silicon dioxide, and aromatic herbs. So it says here that, here it is. Clinically trialed. Human studies published, e.g. Strath, and has increased performance, increasing powers of concentration, effects of Strath during convalescence, flus, and cold in winter. I'm going to start taking them again. All studies are available upon request. So really interesting. Check it out from your local health food store or online. Highly recommended. As for zinc, I don't take a zinc supplement, and I haven't in years because I find that I get enough from food. You can go and actually get blood tests, a full spectrum blood test that does show you everything that you need, and that you're actually lacking, so that you can build it up. So that's another thing that you can do as well. See a pro, get a referral, and get a blood test. Susan says, thanks for the recommendations. I'm on a 3 monthly dose of iron supplements, getting a blood test soon to see if it brings my levels checked in. Awesome. That's fantastic. Do let me know. It'd be really interesting to see. I think as well, just making sure that you've got that variety in your diet is really, really big. Oh, good. You're working with a naturopath. Fantastic. You're on the right track. Keep at it. They're probably the top things that I recommend anyway. And I'm sure the naturopath might have told you Floradix, because that's what my naturopath had recommended to me years ago. And I've always gone back to it as a fantastic supplement. So I hope that I'm sure that that's what they would have recommended to you as well. But I definitely think making sure that you've got a whole different variety of fresh fruit, fresh veggies, nuts and seeds, and all of your legumes, nuts, I said nuts, all of your legumes and beans, and just really having a very well-rounded diet makes all of the difference, and you feel so much better for it as well. So are there any more questions? You guys are it's a little bit quiet in the chat room tonight. Sometimes I have nights where I can't actually keep up and I've got to go way over time. And sometimes it's very quiet in the chat box and people are just chilled out listening to me, on the train, maybe on the way home, or, just sitting around. So, yes, make sure you pop any questions in there if you have any last minute ones, and I will always get back to you as well. Susan says, I'm getting there, new to this. Thank you. You're welcome. And, this is the thing. Everybody has to start somewhere. So don't ever feel like a question is silly, because most people sit there and they say, oh, I feel like my questions are stupid, so I'm not going to answer and I'm going to fumble through. You've got to reach out and you've got to ask, whether that be people online, popping it in a Facebook group, or, however. Just making sure that you're getting the information that you need is so important. But everyone starts somewhere and everyone's on their own journey. So you're doing good. You're doing the right things. Just trust your body and listen to it. It'll tell you exactly what you need to know. So if there are no more questions, we may leave it there. My voice is actually starting to go. I can feel it getting very tired again. So I think it's going to be bath and bed for me tonight and having an early one. Make sure you head on over to Facebook though and do check out the live video of my pantry because it'll give you heaps of inspiration, including all of the stuff that I was talking about earlier. So make sure you pop any questions as well into Facebook. I'm always here to answer them, and I hope that you guys have a beautiful weekend. I am going to the farmer's market tomorrow. I love checking out my local farmer's market, and I try and go to a different one regularly so I get a variety of things. I'm going to go to my farmer's market. I'm actually going to the vegan and vegetarian food truck event that is happening in Melbourne this weekend. I'm so excited, and I'm going to eat a lot of food there. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I'm doing this weekend. So I hope you guys have a beautiful night, and I will talk to you all really, really soon. I hope you enjoyed this webinar, and I'll see you on the next one.